Let's take a look at the AWA, the American Wrestling Association. This is going to be a hefty video, a lot of material, and I didn't think it was going to be that much considering the AWA was quite overlooked by the magazines, and especially the magazine covers. But there was quite a bit of material here. I need to start off with just a little bit of history, which, I don't really like to do, but it's important so you understand what happened, how this formed, and what the different championship belts were in the beginning, because there's several different styles and there's several different companies at hand, and it gets kind of confusing. So I hope to answer some questions that people may have had inside their head, like what is that and who is this and why is that? So hopefully we can address a few of those things here. What we're looking at right now is a 1954 issue of Wrestling As You Like It. It's featuring Verne Gagne as the new United States NWA heavyweight champion. Verne, a little disgruntled with his rising in the ranks, so to speak, in the NWA, felt that he should have been a world champion and wanted some more title shots, and he would get a title shot with Lou Thesz. The match would go on to a draw, which was pretty substantial, and Verne, being already a champion, deserves a rematch, but he would never get it. So with that in the back of his mind, knowing that he was only going to go as far as he could with the NWA before not being able to carry the championship, these things would eat at him for a little while and would lead to future events to come. Now, up a little bit further, a couple years, 3 years, one of the most important matches that caused some of the biggest ripples in the annals of professional wrestling is the match between Edouard Carpentier, and Lou Thesz. Lou Thesz is the NWA World Champion. He's defending it against Carpentier. We discussed this kind of a few different videos now, so I'll just brush through it a little bit. The title changes hands. Carpentier is the new champion. The NWA does not recognize the title change, and several other territories within the NWA do recognize the championship. So now we have a problem. This would cause our first split from territories from the NWA and going on their own and starting their own territories and calling themselves the World Championship. One being the Los Angeles territory, or the WWA in Los Angeles, and the second one would be in Nebraska, All-Star Championship Wrestling from Nebraska, also known as Omaha Wrestling, or Omaha, Nebraska Wrestling. So those two, among several, would be recognizing Carpentier as their world champion. A match would take place in 1958, pitting the United States champion, NWA United States champion, Verne Gagne, and he would challenge Carpentier for the Omaha's version of the World Heavyweight Championship. Verne would beat Carpentier for that title, and he is right here pictured on this pinup. He is not featured on any magazines in the 50s at all with that belt, and so we're taking a look at here at a pinup inside of his first World Championship belt. Now, this title belt would be would continue forward and continue to be defended within the Nebraska territory, or Nebraska world title. Verne surrendered the United States Heavyweight Championship belt from the NWA and continued forward with the Nebraska title. Another year or so down the road, 59 and 1960, Verne, Wally Carbo, and a couple other smaller partners formed their own company called the American Wrestling Association, or the AWA. Like I said, different from the 50s AWA. And Verne would challenge present-day NWA champion Pat O'Connor. He had 30 days to answer the challenge to face him as to make one world champion, Omaha's version of the world champion versus the NWA world champion. Of course, O'Connor did not answer the challenge. He doesn't work for the AWA, and who are you, and who is this company? I never heard of it. Why would I show up? Therefore, the committee from the AWA announced Verne as the new world heavyweight champion of the AWA. So early on, this belt would be used as the heavyweight championship belt. The territory of Omaha is still in existence with the AWA. When the AWA formed, it was out of Minnesota, but they covered, through Chicago, Denver, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Phoenix, Utah, all through the Midwest region, and of course Nebraska. So the title was still being defended as the Nebraska World Heavyweight Championship with the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. There was two belts going on, and the only way I could try to make any sense out of that, if you look back into the early 90s, when Masahiro Chono won the NWA World title, and there was also still the WCW title. That NWA title was still being defended in the WCW. It was separate from the WCW. They were NWA, so it was kind of like that. There was two champions and two belts. If that can give you like the mental picture of where this is at. Verne would drop the title to the Crusher for about a week or so, and would get the title right back. And it wouldn't be until January of 1962 he would lose the title to anyone who would have any lengthy, serious run with it. And that would be the first masked world heavyweight champion, Mr. M. Mr. M is featured here with the Omaha belt. Might get a little confusing right here, but Mr. M, before he was Mr. M, was Dr. X. Dr. X was the Omaha heavyweight champion, and he's pictured here with the Omaha heavyweight championship belt. There is no photos of Mr. M as the world champion, so this was the best I could do for you. And you can see the X on his head. He became Dr. X in 1958. His real name is Dr. Bill Miller. He was also a Omaha champion without the mask. He would be quite the gimmick for Dr. Bill Miller. They call him doctor because he was an actual veterinarian. And he won the title without the mask, and he won it twice with the mask. So he's a three-time champion, three different gimmicks. Big, solid, strong guy. Definitely physically imposing. And would go on to take on Bruno Sammartino later on in the WWF and challenge for his titles as well. So he is Mr. M. He defeated Verne Gagne in January of 1962, and he's the third heavyweight champion of the world, AWA version. We're just going to call it AWA World Champion from now on. And here, like I said, here he is. There is another Dr. X who will appear later on. Totally different guy, totally different gimmick. And but this is the original, the very first Dr. X. The original first Dr. X was not the AWA champion. Mr. M was, okay, because there is a Dr. X that comes later, and he was a champion. So just to add more confusion to the mix. In February of 1963, Verne Gagne would lose the Omaha title to the Crusher, and here in the cover of Wrestling Illustrated is the match, Verne and the Crusher on the cover of Wrestling Illustrated. And these two would have a rematch some 5 months later in July, and it would be a title versus title. Verne would challenge the champion, the Crusher, for the Omaha title, AWA versus Omaha World title, and the Crusher would defeat Verne Gagne in July and take both belts and unify the titles for the first time. So both men now facing each other twice, 2 victories over. The Crusher takes them and takes the titles, and it's going about to change hands again. And just a week later, when he would drop the belt back to him again, and Verne would take the titles. So there's like 3 title changes within a couple of weeks here, real quick, because it's going to happen again with the next champion. So it's kind of confusing. So February 1963, Omaha Championship is won by the Crusher. Rematch title versus title in July of 63. The Crusher takes the AWA belt. Now he has merged them together. Verne would challenge back for the title and he would take the title again 1 week later. So Crusher would only be the champion unified for 1 week before losing it back to Vern again. 1 week after that, new heavyweight champion is Fritz von Erich, and here's your first good-looking shot of the new style belt. They've been using the Omaha belt. They've been using both belts. You're only seeing one pictured at a time here. You never see them together. But here's a good-looking shot of Fritz as the AWA World Champion, and he would unify the belt. He has both titles. And looking good with the title belt with Fritz. Is your only cover that you find Fritz on the cover with this style belt. In September, just a couple of months later, another title versus title match would take place. Fritz would be challenging for the AWA title again, and Fritz is still the Omaha version champion at this time. So it's Vern versus Fritz, champion versus champion, and Vern would take the title from Fritz just about a week later. These title changes were coming fast and furious for sure. And now from this point on, the Omaha version of the title is now merged with the AWA title, and there's no more separation of the two. Although they would continue to use both belts for the next year or so. So you're still going to see the two different belts alternated in and out before settling on the one big one that you just saw with Fritz holding there. So this is your only look at Fritz. This is also a pinup. He never appeared on the cover of a magazine with the Omaha Championship belt. And Fritz is about to make his way and become an icon in the Texas region. Here's your first look at Miss Penny Banner as not your first look, this is your first champion, Miss Penny Banner of the AWA in 1963. She won the title. She would hold the title until, I think, 64 or close to 65. And she's not pictured with the belt, but this is your first ladies champion that took the title in 63. The Crusher is back in the picture in November of 1963. He challenged Vern and won the title from Vern. He would win both titles, of course. Like I said, both titles were merged now together. And he would hold the belt for about a month and drop it in December of 63 back to Vern again. This is your first look at the Crusher on the cover of a magazine, April 1964 Wrestling World. These old 60s wrestling worlds tend to cost quite a few dollars if you can find them. They're not very cheap. I like this issue too because it has mention in the rankings and also a picture of the first black world heavyweight champion, which was Bearcat Wright. A lot of people say, Ron Simmons was the first black champion and blah, blah. It was Bearcat Wright was the first champion. He was the WWA Los Angeles. And that was another territory that broke off when Carpentier won the title. We were talking about several different branch-offs, and that was one of them. And Bearcat Wright was the champion in the Los Angeles version of the WWA. This issue is April of 1964, and it talks about the Crusher's win over Vern, and also the loss because it happened so quickly within each other that they covered both topics. Crusher would drop the title to Maurice Mad Dog Vachon, and here is Maurice now, and he's with the Omaha belt. I like it because it gives the title on the bottom. It says AWA Champion on the bottom, and getting full recognition is the Mad Dog here. Great looking shot. I was a big fan of the Vachon tag team, of him and his brother, and we'll discuss that in just a few minutes as we get further up in the years. Mad Dog would drop the belt to the Mighty Igor, and that would last just about a week, possibly just less than a week. He was not champion for very long, and it's a rare early look at the Mighty Igor before he got the silly friendly Polish act with the sneakers and the hat and the teddy bear and that kind of stuff that was like kid friendly, and different look with him. His hair is a little bit shorter. He's built real good, muscle man. And he would beat the Mad Dog in May of 65 and would drop it right back just about a week later. He never appeared on any covers as the champion. This is the championship pose that he took for his photos at the end, but not with the belt, unfortunately. I don't get why. Many champions appeared without their belts early on. The magazines did that a lot. It wasn't until the 70s when we started getting some great looking belt shots on the cover. We've seen Mr. M and Dr. X. Here he is. We just seen him a minute ago. That's him without the mask. Big Bill Miller. He was Big Bill Miller, Dr. X, Mr. M. Pick your poison for the big man. And October of 65, as he continues the ranks in the Omaha area and also throughout the AWA, Mr. Bill Miller, soon to be heading to the WWF, which just formed about a year ago at this point. Vern now on the cover of his first magazine, and he's posing for Wrestling World. This is December of 1965. You see Wrestling World is pretty dominant in covering the AWA. They were fantastic for covering the smaller territories that the other magazines didn't really cover. And another reason why we loved Wrestling World, always had good stuff with the Sheik in the late 60s and places that nobody else went, and always a great alternative. One of my favorites for sure. Wrestling World with the Crusher announcing he's taking the title from the Mad Dog, Vachon, in July of 1965. Great looking shot of the Crusher here with the bloody face, all bloody out through his teeth. Just a good looking shot of him on the cover of Wrestling World. Another one that's going to run you a few dollars if you can find that issue. In February of 65, Wrestling Review, we get our first pull-out poster of a world champion for the AWA, and it is the Crusher. Let's see if I can fit it in here. And here it is. Trying to get it without the glare. Here's your shot of the world champion, and again, they're using the Omaha version of that belt. And pretty good that they're finally giving the AWA some recognition and giving you a pull-out poster of your champion. They did it for Bruno, they did it for Thez, and now they're doing it for the Crusher. That again was February of 1966. Crusher would drop it back to the Mad Dog in November of 65. And this is your one and only shot of the Mad Dog with this version belt. This is a much better style belt. If you'll notice now, there's no leather behind the belt. It's just the plates and some chains and some metal behind it. There's no leather behind the belt, and that would be like that for a couple of years, which was another version. And early on, they would have the picture of the champion, and they would have two like wreaths or branches from here and wings here. That would also change later on. The picture would change later on. This is a little bit different style than the mid 80s that Kurt and Nick had later on, and Jerry Lawler. So we'll discuss the different changes as they pop up. I made the correction in the comments of the Harley Race video, this being Harley Race's very first magazine cover, February 1966, and it's got a picture of him in a tag team match. Well, he's partnered up with Larry the Axe Hennig, both guys now forming the new tag team and hope to be tag team champions in the future. We looked at Dr. X, and now we are looking at another masked man, the Destroyer, and he would make his rounds throughout the AWA. But the tag's storyline was the Hennig and Race taking on Crusher and the Bruiser in some bloody battles, and they're talking about Hennig and Race, future tag team champions in the making, good stories inside, and also the Destroyer, who was also an AWA a contender as well. Vern on the cover of December 1966, and it's just talking about Vern and the World Series, having a World Series of wrestling, competing with the NWA and WWF to make one world champion, how he would like that to happen. And new world tag team champions, the article had it right, and Hennig and Harley Race are the AWA Tag Team Champions, December 1967. And here's your first look at the champs on the cover of a magazine. It's also the first time the champions of any team are featured for the AWA on the cover as champions. Good looking shot of Harley and Larry. Vern now, February 1967, would take the title back and he would be defeating Mad Dog Vachon. And that would be the Mad Dog's last run as world champion. He would hold it, like you've seen, several times throughout the years, and it would be stuck with Vern for a pretty good run now. And he is the new face of the AWA, and first time he's featured with the big belt. And you can see still no leather here. You can see his skin through the pieces on the side here before it was actually leathered. I'm not sure if that was intentional. I mean, I guess it was intentional because it was like that for several years. So it's just kind of different. It was odd. The original ones were like that. They were metal with hinges without a leather backing, and the real big one without it. So I'm not sure if I like it or not. It's kind of weird, but different anyway. We've seen the Destroyer. Let's see the Destroyer in a different gimmick, and here he is as the ever popular in the 1960s and early 70s Dr. X. And good looking shot of Dr. X. Dr. X would defeat Vern Gagne for the AWA title August 17th, 1968. And this is talking about the Doctor, and he would drop the title back only a week or so later, maybe 10 days or so. By the end of the month, the title would go back to Vern. But you're looking at now your second masked world heavyweight champion, Dr. X. Vern back on the cover as champion again in June of '69. Pretty much the same pose. Well, the same photo shoot for sure, maybe a different pose than the other photo we looked at, a cover we looked at in '66. But it's Vern again a couple years later on Wrestling World and with the championship belt once again. The Mad Dog, since losing the World Heavyweight title, would partner up with his brother, the Butcher Vachon, and the Butcher and the Mad Dog would become AWA World Tag Team Champions. Todd Erickson, my buddy, who hooked me up with this fantastic program from the AWA in March of 1970. A great looking rare photo. He also knows that I liked this tag team and I was a big fan of the Mad Dog. And Todd was good personal friends with the family, with Mad Dog and his wife. And just before he passed away, about a month before he passed away, Todd spent some time with him and had a couple of photos signed, and he was super gracious enough to give me one of the signed photos he had made of the Mad Dog here just 1 month before his passing. So very much grateful, Todd. I really appreciate it. And it means a lot to me to have this, and also your note that you put on the back addressed to me. I very much so appreciate it. I just wanted to say on the back it says Maurice Mad Dog Vachon signed on October 25th, 2013 at his home in Omaha, Nebraska. He passed away on November 21st, 2013. So just about 3 weeks or so before his passing, and a nice note that Todd had given to me this gift. So I appreciate it, buddy, and thank you for all your support, and looking forward to dealing with you a whole lot more on whatever else you got, because I know that you were willed some very very special things from Maurice, and like his trunks and his boots. So maybe don't forget your cousin Bill here and your will, because in my collection it'll be going to a very good, safe home and respected for many years to come. Getting back to the Dr. X, and you'll see now the Dr. X with different masks. And here's the red mask. He had a red mask, he had a white one, he had a white with the X. He had, sometimes he had the X on the side of his face. He's on another cover, December of 1970. And let's take a look at Dr. X inside a second, because he had a tag team partner called Double X that not many people know about or might not remember. And you can see him here with the two X's on his forehead on the mask there. The two, if that comes in clear or not. Double X is being mentioned, and they're mentioned as the tag team. And here is the other mask, like I was saying, where red and the X is on the side of his face right there. Pretty rare looks of X early on here in 1970. And the article goes on to discuss the tag team. This is December of 1970's issue of Wrestling Review. Speaking of double X, show me another magazine or program with double X on the cover. I'll be waiting. I think I'll be waiting quite a long time because you're not going to find one. This is a super rare, awesome magazine slash program of the AWA, and it features the double X man himself on the cover here. Extremely rare and hard to get. This is a huge program. I don't know if I can pull it out. What I love about it for the most is this pull out with Ernie Ladd. I'm going to try to unfold it. It's a monster. I'm going to try to keep it in the center of the picture as much as I can. But I've never seen anything like this. It's enormous. So it opens down, and it's just I'll just open it up as it goes. It's got a good cover, inside story here of the Mad Dog and the Butcher. Here's the lineup of the matches and the date. But it folds down, and I'm not going to be able to put this in here, but as looking down at it from here, it goes down and continues. Yeah, I can't. I'm just going to do it like this. So just imagine it like this. It's enormous. I've never seen a program like it, and it makes Ernie Ladd look gigantic. It's almost 3.5 feet long, almost 4 feet long. It's unbelievable. What a cool looking program. Never seen anything like it. When I see shit like this, I'm all over it. And with double X on it, it's a no-brainer. Pretty cool piece here for 1970 for the AWA. I didn't even care about the matches, who was in it. I just liked the style of that program and how it was cut. I was like, this is awesome. 1972, Gong has the Destroyer on the cover. This is also Dr. X now with another gimmick that we knew, and he's in Japan. He's back and forth in the AWA, and here you're going to get your first color pull-out poster of Dr. X in this issue with the Dr. X shirt. If I can get it in there without the glare, you get the idea. Pretty cool. Never seen before. It's a trifold, so it's enormous. Again, you get the idea. It's a big one. If you're into Dr. X, you know there's not a lot of stuff out there. This has got your first, only, and last pull-out poster of the Doctor. Gong, December 1972. Another expensive one, people. Open up your wallet if you want that one, because it's not cheap. August 1970, now we're into a new decade. Verne Gagne now, pretty much 10 years as running the AWA, and he wasn't the champion. He wasn't a greedy champion by any means. A lot of other guys held it way more and longer than he did. He went several years, almost 3, without even having the championship. Of course, he would be the AWA Midwest champion and the AWA Midwest tag team champion, and he'd have something. He's not going to go with nothing. Tag team championships as well, but he's back now on top, reigning the company, and kind of like a little slap in the face a little bit. This is August 1970 Wrestling Review. Verne Gagne, the other champ. The other champ. How do you take that, right? It's kind of like a little, I don't know. I thought, could have been a little bit nicer if they wanted to be, if they kind of made it sound like that, like, who is this guy kind of a thing, Issue number 1 of Wrestling Monthly, October 1971. And it's got the old look of that Omaha style belt. Here it is. It hasn't been seen in quite a few years. Verne's not using that style belt anymore, but the magazines are. It's kind of weird, especially for issue number 1. You want it to be something a little more updated. But, if we're being picky, Pedro Morales, the WWF Heavyweight Champion, and he's featured here with the WWF United States Championship belt. So, technically, I guess you could, because he merged the 2 belts together in the WWF, but that belt was long gone for sure. Wrestling Monthly featuring all 3 world champions. Here is the Hoss Funk on the corner as NWA champion. Wrestling Monthly, December 1971. Larry Hennig got his new partner, Luscious Lars Anderson, also known as Larry Heinemimi, Luscious Larry Heinemimi, December of 71, Wrestling Monthly. New tag team champions, AWA, Red Bastien and the Crusher. Crusher still reaping havoc throughout the AWA, as well as Dick the Bruiser's WWA and abroad. Now the tag team champions. The Vachons, still the tag team champions, are actually, again, the tag team champions 1 month later on Wrestling Monthly, March of 72. And we're taking a look at Vivienne Vachon, the Vachon's sister, who was also a lady wrestler, quite the lady wrestler as well. I'm not sure if I don't know if she ever competed in the AWA or not. I'm sure she did. I mean, at this time period, the 70s. I know later on she did, late, but early, I'm not quite certain. Tag team champions, once again, are changed to Nick Bockwinkel with jet black hair and Ray the Crippler Stevens, August 1972. And that's your first look at Bockwinkel on the cover of a magazine. Good looking shot at Nick in 1972. He would hold the belts quite a few different months and reigns throughout through up to 75 or so before he would become the world champ. Here is your first look at the Andre the Giant on August of 1972. He is coming down from Montreal and throughout Canada, and he's making his way to America, and he would be first featured in the AWA. On the top, Vern Gagne takes on Happy Humphrey. At 72, I'm not sure how big he was about then. I know he lost, about 600 pounds at some point in the 70s. He's probably still big. That would be an interesting match for Vern. But your first look at Andre the Giant, his first magazine cover. Vern had quite the pool of talent before they went elsewhere. And being the first one in America to have their grips on Andre was something. Imagine if he kept a hold of him a little bit better. Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher now are forming a team. They are on the cover of Wrestling Monthly, September 1972. And if you notice, we have not seen one Stanley Weston magazine yet. That's not by accident. Not one, right? I mean, Stanley's been in production since, 1951, between wrestling and boxing, and then full wrestling from 1959 on. Nothing. Except for that one issue of Wrestling Illustrated, which was just a 5-issue runoff. It wasn't really part of their main run. So the Crusher and the Bruiser are coming after the Blackjacks in the AWA. They're here, and they want a piece of them. And a piece of them they will. Here is the front cover. The Crusher, the Bruiser, versus the Blackjacks in a match, which, rather than hold the pages open, let me just leave it like here for a second, explain what this cover actually is. In 1972, September 1972, Soldier Field, which would be considered the first super show in professional wrestling, the first Starrcade of its time, the first giant matches that take place for the AWA, at least for that matter. This would take place in a steel cage. This was a huge event that took place at Soldier Stadium. Fans apeshit for the card. The card was huge. Dusty Rhodes taking on Wahoo McDaniel, and that's a young Dusty Rhodes in the AWA. Vern would take on Ivan Koloff. So let me get to that photo. That photo was coming up first. It's a nice poster here of the Sheik in here too. I won't take it all out, but keep that in mind also. That's a pretty cool poster for Sheik fans. Ivan Koloff, coming off of his loss to Pedro Morales in the WWF, now taking on AWA champion Vern Gagne, was the main event of the night for the Soldier Field show. That's just Ernie Ladd taking on Pedro. Not sure what Pedro. Okay, right here is the cage match with the Blackjacks taking on Crusher and the Bruiser. Some really good shots here of these two guys. Andre the Giant would also take on Butcher Vachon and was it Larry Hennig, I believe it was? Yeah, and Bockwinkel and Stevens took on Wilbur Snyder and Billy Robinson. So it was a pretty stacked card at Soldier Field. I don't know if many guys are still with us. who may have been there. If anyone's seen that live, it was a long time ago. You may have been real young if you were there. Would love to hear how that night went. I heard it was one of the best, and it's all covered in this issue, and even in the black and white section of this issue of Gong, November of 1972. Then the match, like I said, took place in September. Soldier Field Extravaganza. Verne back on the cover of Wrestling Monthly, October 1972, and also the girls break down the barrier at Madison Square Garden, having the first women's match in New York. Larry the Axe Hennig brings on another new tag team partner, and that is Dirty Dusty Rhodes, Young Dusty, October of 1972. One of his first covers as a wrestler. Wrestling Review featuring the new tag team, the Texas Outlaws, Dirty Dick Murdoch and Dirty Dusty Rhodes. Good looking shot of the two Texas Wild Men. Verne Gagne makes his way to the WWF and defends the AWA title at the Garden. Talking about Verne and Morales at the Garden. I think Verne would have 5 matches at the Garden. 2 of them were a tag team, one teaming up with Andre the Giant. I think it was 2 tag team, definitely 1 tag team. He would make 5 runs there in the 70s, and then that would be it. No more after that. It was great when the Garden would bring in guys from other territories, when they brought in the Von Erichs, when they brought in guys from the WWA. I mean, it was just great when everybody got along, and you know, I should just say, you know, when Vince Sr. was in charge of things, wrestling was fantastic. You see the big change after he passed, and it wasn't a change for the better either. May of 1973, the Butcher is getting choked out by the Giant on the cover. And a good-looking shot. I wish it was not in black and white. Why would you do that? Monthly or cheaply magazines, man. That's what you're going to get with them. It's a shame. But come on, a front cover should never be black and white. Wrestling World, once again, June 1973. Got Verne Gagne on the cover, and he's talking about him as champion. There's also a very lame poster of Verne in here. It's just he's in a corny pose. He has no belt. It's not even worth showing, honestly. But you get a pin-up of Verne there. But not since the Crusher do you get a poster of the AWA champion in the 60s. So it's something, but he should have had his belt with him. Mad Dog on the cover, March 1973. Always liked this cover. I remember staring at the old back issues and those little, 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch black and white photos. You would stare and try to guess who was on the cover. I could never guess who it was. I always thought it was Killer Brooks. And lo and behold, when I found this at a flea market some 20-some years after me staring at it in the 70s, it was the Mad Dog. The Destroyer, one of his things that he would do was bleed through the mask, and I always loved that, man. I thought that was so cool. Also, Andre the Giant in the AWA. Also, Vachon, this is like a trifecta for kind of AWA or AWA talent, if you want to say. June of 73, Carpentier and the Mad Dog in a boxing match that took place in Ottawa. The Destroyer, and also Andre here in 73, Wrestling Review. Wrestling Guide, we're going to start taking a look at superstar Billy Graham, who's making quite the noise in the AWA and catching on with the fans. Wrestling Yearbook, and it's got all 3 champions. Verne again with the Omaha belt. Quite weird. They were about 10 years removed from the Omaha style and the merger from that, and they're still using it. Verne again now, a month later. Actually, this is your first Stanley Weston magazine, but they're showing the champions here, but still nothing about the AWA and their champions, per se, and with any photos. But I guess it should be noted that Stanley Weston finally putting the AWA champion on there and recognizing him as one of the top three guys. Only took, 10 years or better, 13 years. March of 74, and it's got Verne with the world title of Wrestling Review. Here's an interesting match. Superstar Graham, like I said, climbing the ranks. He's taken on Chief Wahoo McDaniel, September 1973. And as we go inside, there's a good-looking shot of Superstar and Wahoo, taking up 2 pages in the color article. Great looking piece here for 1973. Oh, that was it, just the one shot. And then I thought there was a couple color photos in here. It's just a shot of Victor Rivera. Let's see what the other side poster is. Okay, Dory and Harley. Nope, I thought there was more, but good looking shot of Superstar early on. And this is actually his first Japanese cover as well, and it's against Wahoo and the Indian Strap. Good looking. December 1973 Wrestling Review, talking about Andre and Carpentier again. Reason I'm going inside with this is it's your first early look at the Magnificent Morocco as AWA Rookie of the Year. And good looking long-haired Don Morocco. Here he is against Dusty in the AWA as well. And here he is with his tag team partner at the very bottom here, Lonnie Kigaloa, which was Superfly Jimmy Snuka, if you can see that there. And at the top is getting his hand raised here with Superfly Snuka. They were a tag team. And just 10 years later, they would be in one of the most iconic matches in wrestling history at the Garden against each other, not a tag team. What is this? December 1973. It's got Superstar Billy Graham's now first title shot, first world title shot. I'm trying to get the better here. Taking on a Vern Gagne, and it's just a couple of photos here of the Superstar and Vern, and challenging for the title. So Vern also had the young Superstar as well as Andre. He really had quite the talent, like I was saying. Check out this backdrop here. Andre with Blackjack Lanza. I mean, he must be close to 10 feet in the air, standing straight up. Look at that, man, what a shot. Good looking shot of Andre here. Young Bobby Heenan with Lanza. But I always liked that photo. I was like, wow, look how high up in the air he is. What a great looking photo. The Japanese took some fantastic color shots and really pulled no punches when it came to releasing magazine coverage. It was just awesome. Tag team of the century, Bockwinkel and Stevens to meet Bruiser and Gagne for the AWA tag team titles. And it's got Bockwinkel and Stevens on the cover, along with Iron Mike McCord. I don't know. Sounds like a nobody in the making, if you ask me. Never heard of Iron Mike. Have you? Big Book of Wrestling, September 1974, and it's got Nick Bockwinkel on the cover, wrestling Billy Robinson, and it's also talking about Larry Hennig and Vern Gagne. Interesting program here. Superstar Billy Graham again, still in 1974, a pivotal year for Graham. He started getting a lot more notoriety with the magazines, getting a lot more hype, loving him on color TV, and because in early 70s there was still quite a few black and white TVs around. Superstar here in 74, Vern on the back, but let's take a look at a couple of the younger guys, some of the rookies coming in, and here's a early shot at the ugly, pudgy Nature Boy Ric Flair before he was the Nature Boy. Shortly after this time period, this look here in 74, Superstar Billy Graham's wife would get a hold of Ric Flair's head and dye it blonde for him for the first time, and that's how he would stay. He would lose some weight, get a little more body physique, and it was Superstar that inspired him to dye the hair, and quite inspiring he was to him, as he was to many others. And a lot of guys really don't know that Flair was inspired by Graham. You hear about Jesse and everybody else, but you really wouldn't think Flair. There's a poster of Ken Patera, the Muscle Man, World's Strongest Man, Olympic Man, in this little program. I just thought I would show that. Good shot of Mad Dog inside this program. Just trying to see was anything else worth talking about, but not really. Yeah, good looking shot of early Ric Flair in his rookie year, talking about him as a rookie. And here is Wrestling Annual, and we got the Tag Team of the Year, which would be Bockwinkel and Stevens. Superstar Billy Graham up top in the corner. You heard of the Mad Dog. You heard of the Butcher, Vachon. How about Stan Vachon? Stan Vachon here. Extremely rare to find him on the cover. He was the AWA Midwestern Heavyweight Champion at this time. He would also be a multiple AWA Midwest Tag Team Champion as well in 74 and 75. This is Official Wrestling Magazine, September 1974. And he's taking on another brother, Paul LeDuc, the brother of the brother of Joe LeDuc, and not very common to see either one of these guys on a cover of a magazine at all. Pretty cool issue here for two rare wrestlers and brothers, for that matter. Superstar Billy on the cover of an AWA photo album. This is just a solid photo album of all the wrestlers in the AWA. You're starting to see Superstar get quite a bit of attention. Let's take a look at Superstar in the cover of Gong. Here he is with Baron von Raschke. They were tag team partners, and then they would soon to be enemies. This has got a really good looking poster of Superstar and Baron. Look at that shot of Superstar, man. He is chiseled. Wow. No one was built like that in 1973 and 74. Here he is taking on the Crusher. They had several wars. They also were two finalists in a battle royal together. I don't have that issue with me. I show it in another magazine. Here he is, just some color shots, and taking on the Crusher. Several really good looking photos of Superstar here. Here's a spread by himself. The other ones were tag teams. But here's Superstar in his first main spread in Japan. Wahoo and him would be on the strap match, would be the first cover he would be on. And it just goes on. He would challenge for the IWA Heavyweight Championship of the World. That is the first World Heavyweight title of Japan. There was other championships. They weren't World Championships. They were NWA affiliates. IWA, IWE Enterprises, for E and the company term name, was the first world title. So Billy Graham was challenging Billy Robinson in this magazine, in this issue here. He would go on to win that world IWA title. And there's some pretty good looking black and white photos of Superstar here too. I'm just going to show. We'll get to that in a second when he becomes the champion. I have a bunch of photos. I didn't bring them. I should have. They're small 4x6s of Superstar when he was champion. And here he is taking on Robinson, Wahoo rather, in a arm wrestling challenge. And a couple other pretty good shots of Superstar coming up here, which they, even in their black and white photos, they do an incredible job with their photos. Superstar. This would have been great color. This other one would have been really good in color too. This is almost one of our covers. We're going to see that on one of our Stanley Weston magazines in a second. Actually on this cover right here of the wrestler. But great looking photos of the Superstar in Japan. And finishing it off, we'll just use this as the last one. With a really cool looking jacket that I've never seen before. I would have loved to have seen that in color, because I can imagine what that looks like. Because Graham did not wear shirts very often. He would not cover up his arms, and that's a rare shot of him with a jacket and a robe on. But I was mentioning Superstar Graham winning the IWA title. Here is the program to the title series where he would win the IWA title. It would be his first world title. And like I said, it's the only Japan world title at the time. Even, Old Japan, New Japan were not world titles. This is the program to that event, and this is the program the night Superstar won the belts. I do have a couple photos, not all of them, but I have a couple bigger ones too, and a few other small ones. But here's Superstar with that IWA belt. Very cool looking. Here he had a dark black beard and the mustache, quite like Hulk Hogan did for the NWO. So that should be another thing noted. that was stolen from Superstar. He had that black beard and blonde mustache first. So Superstar now on probably one of my, without a doubt, if not one, the second or third favorite magazine cover of all time is this issue of Superstar, July '74. Superstar now really becoming popular in the AWA, really taking off, establishing in his name. And he's going to be well known before he even gets to New York, for sure, thanks to the coverage of the magazines and Vern Gagne putting him on TV. He wouldn't give him the belt, of course, because he's not a wrestler, right? Vern only gives the championships to wrestlers. Here is Superstar again on the bottom of Wrestling Photo Album #1. This is the very first photo album of the 5 in the series. Vern on December 1974. With the championship belt on the cover of Pro Wrestling Monthly, and Jack Briscoe here with the NWA belt. Notice it's the red leather NWA belt there for Jack. Cool looking for sure. Billy Robinson taking on Harley Race on this issue of December '74 Inside Wrestling. Billy Robinson again, one half of the tag team champions on the cover of Wrestling Annual number 11. Wrestling Monthly with the Destroyer on the cover. Not sure if I think he's pretty much Japan bound at this point, but here has the complete history of the AWA Championship turnovers, meaning all the matches that changed hands, all the titles that changed hands, and the matches and the dates and who the champions were. So this is a good issue to find to get the full history from '60 to 1975 from the AWA champs. There's a look at Vern Gagne on the cover of Wrestling Review with his family and his dog and his daughters, and the daughter here would be married to Larry Zbyszko later on. There's a young Greg over here. March 1975 Wrestling Review. Nick Bockwinkel would go on to take the world title from Vern Gagne, and the magazines could give a shit less, and doesn't have anything but maybe a header on one of the magazines. It's really wasn't even worth showing. It was kind of a disgrace. Nick, in my opinion, was a great champion, very charismatic. He could insult you just using big words, and he didn't yell and scream and holler and act like an idiot. He came on there and he looked down at you as the snooty snob, and he knows his skills and his intelligence could carry him as being the professional, and didn't need to be an idiot with the belt. And I just totally loved it. Totally different, and totally overlooked by many. He should have gotten a lot more praise. He was a great champion. He could wrestle, and he carried the belt with respect and dignity that a wrestler should. Even as a heel, you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be, yelling and screaming and a bloodthirsty maniac. You could be a bad guy with just by being, smart and rude. So it's quite the different gimmick for sure, and totally loved it. Totally loved Nick. This is 1976 championship issue. Spotlight on all 3 world champions, and they don't have him with his belt. Why not? You have everybody else with the belt. It's just kind of another little slap in the face by Stanley Weston. Here is Bockwinkel again on the cover with Stevens when they were tag team champions in 1976, talking about the Midwestern villains. Are they the meanest? The Spoiler with his second identity, the Super Destroyer. This is the only cover you will find the Spoiler as Super Destroyer on the cover of. By himself anyway. He is on one other AWA program, but you never see him on a magazine. Rare look at Super Destroyer with this gimmick. Before he go back to the Spoiler. Andre the Giant challenging Bockwinkel for the title here. Bruiser Brody taking on San Martino in September 1977, the wrestler. Bockwinkel now first full cover as heavyweight champion of the world, and a good looking shot of Nick here in Wrestling Review, April 1977. Stanley Weston featuring all 3 world champions in winter of '77, and it's got another good looking shot of Nick with the brown belt here, and we're going to call this one, it was would go on to be known as the inmate belt, because it was made in a prison, I believe in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. It wasn't uncommon for prisoners. They used to make license plates and all kinds of sheet metal things, and making their championship belt was, I guess, another way for maybe Vern to save a few bucks. I don't know, but they did a good job. Some people, didn't like it. I thought it was a good looking belt. It's pretty cool, and having the brown leather is the earlier version of it. It would change later to the black leather. I'm not sure if there was subtle changes to the plate after, but the brown one was definitely the inmate one. I don't know if you can call the black leather the inmate one, because I'm not sure if the polished leather was changed or not. Here's your first look at Jerry the King Lawler, and he is the AWA Southern Heavyweight Champion. And here's the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship belt. And this was defended in the Memphis territory, Jerry Jarrett's territory. And like I said before, AWA being affiliated with so many others from, between San Francisco and Las Vegas and whatnot. This is just another title that they had on next to their Midwest Championship titles, the tag team and heavyweights, was the Southern. And good looking shot of Jerry the King. He's another guy who was very snubbed by the magazines, grossly neglected by the magazines. Bob Backlund, just before coming to the WWF, he'd be taking on Billy Robinson and also Vern Gagne in the AWA, testing his wrestling skills before coming champion. Just after dropping the Missouri title, he went up to the AWA and then made a quick right to New York and stayed up north for a good 7 years or so. And good looking shot of Backlund and Billy Robinson. This is an AWA Wrestling news program, and it's dedicated entirely to all the champions of the AWA. So if you want the history of the AWA, of all their titles and all their champions in order by date and location, this is the one for you to get. They have one for the WWF, and there's also one for the NWA. I highly recommend all of them, especially if you're a history buff and you want to know the champions and the order and the locations and dates. Those are the ones for you. AWA All-Star Program Wrestling with Nick Bockwinkel on the cover in '78. Japan putting out the three big world champions, American issue or USA issue of NWA champion Harley Race, Bockwinkel, and WWF Backlund on the cover here. And it's all photos and pinups of all favorite wrestlers in 100% color. Another one that runs you well over $100 if you can find it. And it sucks, but it's worth it if you like that kind of stuff for sure, and I certainly do. Far right-hand corner shot of Nick here as the world champion, here with the brown leather. One of the last few looks of that before it changes in '78. Jerry the King back on the cover talking about a match upcoming with Nick Bockwinkel for the title. Damn, I didn't bring that issue. I wanted to show it. It's in a Japanese issue. It's in full color, and what's his name took the photos. Oh God, his name's escaping me. Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette took the photos to this match. Cool match. It was a big match, and I freaking forgot to bring it out. There's so much stuff. I could have made this in 3 parts, and I probably should have, because it's already an hour into it, man. I gotta start boogieing through here. February 1979, we got Bockwinkel on the cover with Harley Race, Inside Wrestling. Dusty is challenging Nick for the AWA title March of '79. And Wrestling's Greatest Battles, inside here with Bobby Heenan and Backlund spring of '79 with a very bloody Andre on the cover. Here is the match covered in picture book, Wrestling's picture book in summer of '79 between Dusty and Bockwinkel for the title, and Dusty does not take that title. Nick again, small corner, and here is the black leather belt in June of 1979. All 3 world champions. Backlund about ready to have a match with Nick Bockwinkel in a title versus title that kind of went quiet throughout the wrestling world. Not a whole lot of talk about it. I think a lot more should have been talked about, but not a lot. But all three champs on the cover of the rings. This is the second issue under the new owners of the rings, or is it the first issue? It's either the first or the second under the new owners there. And here's the match, August '79, with Backlund and Bockwinkel, title versus title. Wrestling World also covering that title versus title, Backlund and Bockwinkel. Very bloody Nick Bockwinkel on the cover with his championship belt. Great looking bloody magazine cover if you like this style of a magazine cover, and I certainly do. January 1980, Wrestling Annual. All three champions again featured on the cover of Gong. This also has the matchup between Dusty Rhodes and Backlund when Dusty challenged for the WWF title. Great photos, great color shots. Backlund was pretty bloodied in that one. 1980s now. We're in the 1980s, and we're taking a look at the new tag team, Jesse the Body and Adrian Adonis, on a cover of Major League Wrestling. This is a magazine/program put out by Norman Keitzer, and there's a bunch of these down the line. We show maybe a handful of these as we go. They are close, soon-to-be tag team champions. In this issue of Gong in 1980, we have your color pinup of Jesse and Adrian with the tag team belts right here, and it's a double fold poster of the two. Pretty cool looking shot of the champions. Also a black and white poster there of the Crusher. In this issue here, what is this? December 1980 of Gong. Here is another Major League program with Gagne and Brunzell defeating the Jesse and I don't know, man. I mean, Gagne and Brunzell over Jesse and Adrian. Here they are as tag team champions on the cover of Major League Wrestling program once again. Good looking shot of the tag team champs. Title will go back and forth. AWA. This is a Wrestling News magazine edition with the High Flyers on the cover. Hulk Hogan makes his way from Memphis to the WWF over to the AWA, and he's taken on the Crusher here in January 1981 in a early PWI. Early for them because it just came out in '79, November's issue, I think it was. The Crusher is the enforcer of the AWA. Good bloody shot, kind of reminiscent of many of his covers in the '70s. High Flyers once again on the cover here with the tag team championship belts. Dusty and Bockwinkel again, April '82, Inside Wrestling. Quite a few magazines with the AWA, just not many with the champions and stuff early on though. Fall of '82, recycled story with Backlund and Bockwinkel. Good looking cover though. Jesse and Adrian again on PWI, and this has got actually a full. This is your first poster of Bockwinkel in this issue, I believe. I think it's, yeah. Great looking poster here of Bockwinkel with the brown leather belt. Early shot, '70s obviously, because he's using the black now. Sorry about the glare, but this guy's your first poster. Like I said, always make sure you have the posters in these, especially if you're paying a lot for a PWI. It's not complete unless you got all the posters. That's how I feel. I'm just nuts. Don't listen to me. Rick Martel invades the AWA, leaving the WWF. Former tag team champion Martel makes his way to the AWA. And what can you say? Nick Bockwinkel and Hulk Hogan. Man, I mean, we all know what happened. We all know the history of what happened, right? Where things could have went, where things could have, what heights they could have achieved. Everything was right there. Hulkamania was running wild long before the WWF. He was a bad guy there. He was not good. The fans went completely apeshit for Hulk Hogan in the AWA. The American made thing, the music, the hype, the fans were crazy. his T-shirts and posters were all being sold like crazy. Watch any old footage of Bockwinkel versus Hogan, and you'll see the electric there. Why they did not capitalize on that is just, it's stunning. Bockwinkel and Hogan would meet 5 times in 1982 and once in 83 on big cards, on major title defenses. What Vern did, I mean, you have to blame it like on that. Who am I to blame anybody to do anything? It's your business, it's your company, you do what you want. But if you didn't to seize that moment and to make him your champion, if not just for a couple of months, and try it, what did you have to lose? Especially with your choices later on. I mean, that was the time. February 27th, Chicago, 1982, ended in disqualification. Okay. Rematch, April 18th, St. Paul, Minnesota. Rematch again. This issue kind of touches on it. It's this issue that talks about it. Hogan wins the AWA championship. You can see here with the belt, he's a bloody mess. He was hit with a foreign object. Here is Hogan getting the pinfall over Nick. I'm not sure how many photos there are here. Might just be, okay. And bear hugged with Lord James Blears, I think was the ref. Anyway, Hogan wins the world championship. Fans go completely apeshit. Watch the matches if they're online. I have them all. I've seen them. I just watched them recently just to capture the moment to see myself again. And my God, he wins the title. Bockwinkel uses the foreign object on Hulk's head, hence he's busted open and bloody. Hogan then grabs the foreign object, hits the referee with it. Hits Bockwinkel with it. Knocks him out for the pinfall. Heenan runs over to the referee and says he hit him with the object. That's why he got the pinfall. Referee seen Hogan's head. Hogan said, I was hit with it first. Referee calls it even, and the match is awarded to Hogan. The belt is awarded to Hogan. The fans leave thinking Hogan's the champion. 5, 6, almost 7 days pass to the next TV taping, and then they announce that Stanley Blackburn has reversed the decision of the referee and gave the title belt back to Nick Bockwinkel. What a slap in the face to the fans, to everyone. I mean, how could you do something like that? How can you have a match, have him be the champion for a week, and then on TV announce that he had to give it back? That's like the shittiest thing to do. And it's not the first time he's done it, and it's certainly not the last time he's going to do it. That kind of shit pisses people off, and they're not going to want to spend their money if that's the kind of ending you're going to do to a match. Especially, you just can't jerk their feelings around like that. I mean, people, spend their hard-earned money and they expect, you to do the right thing. We know it's wrestling, but going a week later and yanking that rug out from everybody, it was just bad business for everybody, and it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Hogan should have kept the belt. He should have had the run for a good while. Hulkamania was ridiculous there. It was said, rumored, this is on this issue, by the way, full coverage is in Pro Wrestling Monthly, June of 1982, with Flair on the cover. It was said, Vern wanted 75% of Hogan's earnings in his T-shirt and poster sales, which Hogan was selling on his own, which is ridiculous. Why would you take 75% of the guy's money? Hogan offered a 50-50 split, and Vern refused it, which is more than generous because Vern has nothing in that. Hogan's doing it on his own. He also said he wanted a heavy purse of Hogan's income from Japan, which Japan pays triple, sometimes quadruple the amount the Americans pay. And why would you give it to Vern? For what? There's no reason. Why would I give you 3/4 of my check or half of my check? So Hogan also refused that. That's maybe rumored why he didn't get the belt. And then after a while, it was rumored that Hogan was going to get the title, but he left. Come on, I'll explain why you didn't do that, why that was never even a possibility in a few minutes. Okay. He went on to, before I get on to the next match, like I said, they had 5 matches. That April 18th in St. Paul, when they pulled the rug out from the fans. They had another match on May 6th in Oakland, California. That was a disqualification. June 20th, back in St. Paul, disqualification. July 25th, another disqualification. That would send Hogan on his way. He would take off and go to Japan and then go off to film the Rocky movie. So this was all before Rocky. This is all before he became, a ridiculous icon, pop culture icon, I should say, within itself. We'll get back to 83 in just a couple of minutes. We're still in 82. We're going to get up there, so try not to forget where we left off with Hogan here. August of 1982, Wildfire Tommy Rich, the young heartthrob coming up from the Georgia territory, who was a Tennessee guy, taking on Bockwinkel for the title, and comes up short. All 3 champions on the cover of Wrestling Review, September 82. Hogan on his first PWI cover, December 82. Hogan at the crossroads of Hollywood and wrestling, talking about him and the upcoming film. July 82. Rocky being filmed, and Hogan on the front cover slamming Stallone, now making him a household face and name from just one film. Pretty incredible. Bockwinkel on the cover of Wrestling Review, January 1983. And I go up to the newsstand and I get all excited and I see, oh damn, Superstar Billy is on the front cover, posing again. Not since the 70s have I seen Superstar pose on a cover of a magazine with his new look. And I'm real excited. And I'm eyeing down the cover and I see Otto Wanz, new AWA champion. Who the fuck is Otto Wanz? Come to find out, it's Otto Wanz, excuse me. And you are the new AWA champion? What? Who the hell is this guy? And where did he come from? He's the new world champion? This took place 1 month after Hogan's 5th match. So in July 25th was Hogan's last match with Bockwinkel, and then he left. In August, Otto wins the title. We're like, how could this be? I mean, this just doesn't even make any sense. Wow. It's all covered here in this issue. Not many pages. There's another one back further, but continues on another page. But here's your shot of Otto taking the AWA World Championship. The fans weren't happy. No one was happy. No one could understand it. And especially when you were pushing Hogan all that time, and this is your choice over a red-hot Hogan, I just don't get the logic, man. I don't at all. Very strange. But then again, I'm not a wrestling promoter. I don't know what's in the mind and hearts of people and how they run their business or money. The title would not last long. February 1983, Nick Bockwinkel regains the AWA title from Otto Wanz, and here he is getting kneed in the side of the head. And I think everyone was happy. It just went back to normal. He was not champion long. It was not mentioned much. No magazines really talked about it. It was in and out, and like, wow, what just happened in the AWA? Not the popular choice by any means. Another thing that pisses off the fans, actually, is all you really did, especially a Hogan fan. March 1983, the night Bockwinkel re-won the title, and it goes into some discussion here about him winning the title back from Otto, and not even a mention of Otto winning it. It's just about Bockwinkel winning it back. let's see, June 1983, the Gagnes are keeping the AWA title from Rick Martel. And here is Martel taking on Bockwinkel in a small corner. And Scandal rocks wrestling. Pat Patterson takes a shot at Nick Bockwinkel's title, far left corner, June 83. Piper getting the main title, main cover. Hogan now making his comeback after about a 6-month absence from making films and doing whatever in between. And Hogan now declares war on the cover of the Rings magazine. He's back in the AWA, and he is promising the fans this time he is taking the title no matter what. More hot than ever. The fans are behind Hogan 100%. Everyone is ready to ride the Hulk train. Let's go get that title. And Hogan back on the cover here. Wrestling Review, October 1983's issue. September 1983 takes on Hogan once again. And this is the coverage from a match at an event called Super Sunday, April 24th, 1983. And Hogan, he's got to win. It's a no disqualification. He can't miss. He's going to be the world champion. We're getting tickets to this. We're going to watch Hulk bring home the gold. All right. Hogan puts him down for the 3. 1, 2, 3. You're a new champion. Hulk Hogan. Fans go crazy. People are going nuts. Watch the footage. It's got to be on YouTube. It was that long ago. And you tell me. Only to have Stanley Blackburn once again come into the ring and disqualify Hogan for throwing Bockwinkel over the top rope moments before the pinfall. Quite a few moments before, actually. He had plenty of time to call disqualification before the pinfall. And we're like, wait, what? This is a no disqualification match. How do you get disqualified? Nobody had an answer. Nobody had questioned it. It's just take the belt, give it back to Bockwinkel. And the fans were like, we're done. I'm not spending any more money on this. This is total bullshit. How could he do this twice? Really, how do you do that twice to the? I mean, it's unbelievable. The build up to the event was huge. The place was packed. Judge for yourself, and totally stymied everybody in professional wrestling and the fans. You continue doing things like that, it's going to lead to your demise. It's just you just can't keep doing that. These dusty finishes, don't make people happy. Once, fine. Not continuous over and over every time there's a title match. It was just getting ridiculous. Hogan again would leave in April, go to Japan. Goes to Japan, wins the IWGP World, actually it wasn't a world title, it was a tournament title at the time, but he's getting recognition all over the world. Hogan comes there as a heel, wins the title, and defeats Antonio Inoki for the first IWGP heavyweight tournament, and he gets the gold. Here he is on the cover of Wrestling Review. This is not mentioned in America till several years later, till after he was already a champion in the WWF. But nonetheless, that's what he went and did and became the champion. This was in June. So from April, Super Sunday, it was in April, June, May started the tournament, and in June he won the final tournament. It was a month long, and he is the champion in Japan. He would make his way back to the AWA in November later on, but it just wasn't the same. Bockwinkel on the cover of the Rings Wrestling, 1983, with the gold. Hogan now, after several months, after winning the IWGP, returns on, I think it was October he came back. He had maybe 5 or 6 matches. A bunch of those were tag team matches with Andre the Giant. We're doing handicap matches, 2-on-3, also 2-on-2 tags. He would not get another shot at Bockwinkel again, and Hogan decided to make a phone call and up and left the AWA. His last match in the AWA was November 13th in Salt Lake City. He would not wrestle again until January 23rd, and that was the night he won the title. He would make a TV appearance January 3rd as a quote-unquote tag team partner with Bob Backlund, though it wasn't, he never got into the ring. He only beat the guys up at the end, and Backlund had a match with the Samoans, so it really wasn't a tag team match. It was kind of booked as one, but he didn't wrestle. He didn't wrestle anyone until the night he defeated the Sheik and became the #1 contender, and now he is on top of the world in the World Wrestling Federation, and the rest is history. All of this could have been Verne Gagne's. Had he just not did what he did, kept him as world champion, and we may not be seeing professional wrestling the way we're seeing it today. Well, we don't see professional wrestling today. There's entertainment today. So the sport of professional wrestling may have stayed intact. If anything, maybe just a little bit longer had things been a little bit different. But for Hogan, I'm glad for Hogan, and he got his championship, and he's a happy camper. AWA fans got to be more than extremely pissed off. If you're a big Hogan fan and you liked Hogan and you were in the AWA fan and that was your territory, once cable came across and having all that had done to you, would you continue watching the AWA? No, you're going to watch the WWF. And that's what thousands did. You could just take a look at their arena size afterwards. I mean, there was nothing. It would slowly, they'd have a couple of good years, but, by and large, they were losing. Hogan is now the WWF champion. Nick Bockwinkel will continue as AWA champion with Dusty Rhodes here on the rings. Competition would get a little stiffer, taking on Jerry Lawler again, August 83 Inside Wrestling. Still have the tag team champions, the High Flyers. I've got a really cool looking autograph of the High Flyers. Talk about really nice penmanship. Look how nice that is. I mean, look how great Greg signs his name. It's like, really, wow, look at that, man. Just really cool. Some guys just scribble a little nothing on there and you're paying them all this money for like a scribble. Those guys really signed it nice. I thought it was really cool. Bockwinkel taking on the returning Wahoo McDaniel to the territory, and November of 83 Inside Wrestling. And what do you know? I grab a magazine off the newsstands and I'm like, Mil Mascaras has won the AWA title? Oh no, wait. The night it was stolen from Mil Mascaras. Oh, let me guess what happened. I don't even need to read the article. Mil Mascaras, close to being a champion. Mr. Saito on the cover with, this is interesting, with the WWF tag team belt for the AWA program. Kind of weird. I don't think many companies did stuff like that, showing someone else's championship belt. January 1984, Sports Review, Nick with the world title, soon to be dropping it in the close future. Is the AWA too tough for Rick Martel? January 1984. Maybe the management is. I don't know about the wrestlers. Hulk Hogan, now the WWF champion. How far can Hulkamania carry his American dream? This all could have been AWA's. But they shocked the world once again in a title versus title. Nick Bockwinkel, AWA champion, challenging the NWA International Heavyweight Champion in Japan, Jumbo Tsuruta. Jumbo Tsuruta capturing the AWA title. Who is this? And when? What? Wow. Unbelievable. Another title change with another champion that no one knows. That's not going to carry your championship or your company or fill up your arena. I just don't get the logic. Not taking one thing away from Jumbo Tsuruta. The guy's a Japanese icon and champion everywhere he went. But as your choice for the American Wrestling Association in the mid-'80s when things were about to burst wide open, not exactly the champion you want carrying your championship in the Midwest. Just saying. Bockwinkel would not retire, but not be on the scene as much since losing to Jumbo. The Crusher is returning to the AWA. Well, you got that going for you. the guy who was there in 1960 is now your headline on the magazine for major news. The Crusher. All right. The Crusher was enormous in the AWA. Totally, fans went crazy for him, and still did. And he would end up capturing a title. But, things were changing, and you could see the mentality of Vern kind of going backwards a little bit. Here is a program, Major League Wrestling program with Bockwinkel, but he is no longer the champion, but featured as the champion on the cover. Here is AWA program with Hulk, and this was during his comeback. These are a little bit out of order, I think. Sorry about that, but you get the idea. Actually, looks like I got two of these. Hogan on the cover of an AWA program. Pretty rare to see Hogan on the cover of an AWA program. We're going to see a few guys here that are kind of rare on the covers. And Bruiser Brody being another one. Abdullah the Butcher on this one, and also the next one. These are tough. They weren't there long, especially Brody. He was there for a little bit. Tag team partnered up with the Barbarian or John Nord. Abdullah was there a little bit less than Brody, but pretty cool to have. These are kind of run you a few bucks if you come across those. Some good things are about to come to the AWA to boost ticket sales. Not quite yet, but almost. And it comes in the form of a Legion. But before the card of Jerry Lawler. But before that, the Baron and the Crusher win the AWA Tag Team Champions. Okay. Wrestling Review. Doesn't even have a date on here. Sorry, guys. It's probably inside the magazine. But the moral of the story is the Baron and the Crusher win the AWA Tag Team Championship. Yeah, I don't really think I need to make any comment about that one. September 1984, Inside Wrestling. Rick Martel dethrones Jumbo Tsuruta. Finally, an AWA champion to be proud of. Nope, those are not my words. That's the front of Stanley Weston's Inside Wrestling magazine, and absolutely agree with it. I don't know if I agree with, but in comparison to the others, it's certainly an upgrade. Is it the guy, he's a WWF mid-card guy. Is he going to carry the AWA? I mean, come on. You had it. You had Hogan. And you were a blink of an eye away from having the Road Warriors in their prime. Holy shit. You really... you had it, Vern. You had it. The the Fabulous Ones on the cover. Is there a difference? On the cover, a Major League Wrestling program making their way into the AWA. And the Animal and the Hawk make their way to the AWA Midwest territory and are soon to be challenging the Baron and the Crusher. This is a pretty cool little magazine. Book. Not a magazine, about Pro Wrestling USA. It was Pro Wrestling USA Mat Wars, the Vern Gagne written. It's got some really good-looking color photos inside, and stories about Pro Wrestling USA and how it started, and some different wrestlers that competed in the Pro Wrestling USA TV circuit. Pro Wrestling USA, when it first came on TV, this is my first exposure to the AWA. It was Jerry Jarrett's CWA, Crockett's Mid-Atlantic. I believe it was, if it was anything left of the Georgia territory of Ole Anderson and Vern Gagne's AWA, all kind of merged together and did a TV program. It was kind of a botched mess. The arenas were different. The matches were taken from different locations and spotted onto a show. Once that fizzled out and they all went their separate ways, Vern kept the Pro Wrestling USA name and kept the name for it for his TV show for AWA. And that was cool. And I was actually at maybe 6 or 7. I was trying to figure it out with my cousin. I think 7 TV tapings for the AWA when they hit the Northeast and recorded at the Tropicana Casino in Atlantic City. It was great times. and had some great matches that we watched, man. And a lot of the great matches were dark matches that never made it to television, which was shocking. But pretty cool book, really thick book. You can see that it's almost 3/4 of an inch thick. I don't know how much it's worth. I don't know if it's easy to find or hard to find. I've had it for a long time. But if you're a fan of AWA and Pro Wrestling USA time period, I would recommend this book to you. Vern also put out his own magazine, which was a newspaper called Pro Wrestling Report. It's called Vern Gagne's Pro Wrestling Report. And I'm not sure how many issues were put out, maybe a dozen or so. I have just only 2 issues of these. One's with the Masked Superstar here on the cover. And I think the other one have the Road Warriors or Bockwinkel. I can't remember. We're going to see it in a second. Sergeant Slaughter makes his move from the WWF and comes to the AWA. And okay, there's another good pickup. So you're getting some people now. Bob Backlund comes over and makes his way to the AWA and the Road Warriors. So you're starting to get some familiar faces from up north that can try to help your product move and circulate and spread a little bit. And you just got to do the right things with them. Not necessarily that's what happened. Bockwinkel taking on Martel in December of 1984's issue of Sports Review. Final look at the Road Warriors here, pictured here with the national titles, but they are now in the AWA, soon to be in the AWA, to have a good feud with the Warriors or the Freebirds. And this is late 84's issue of Wrestling 84. They weren't in the AWA yet. They're not on very many magazines, but I thought it was worth talking about the impact the Freebirds had in the AWA and the battles they had with the Road Warriors, and it was pretty good stuff. And so there were another one that the AWA could have really expanded and did something with that just didn't, just fell short with the people that they had. Road Warrior Hawk on the cover squeezing the aging Baron von Raschke, January 85, and they are the World Tag Team Champions now, defeating the Crusher and the Baron. Good looking shot here. One of the very few posed covers of PWI in the mid 80s. You didn't see that past 82 of posed covers. Wrestling Heroes and Villains photo album put out by the Main Event Wrestling magazine, and it's a good looking shot of the AWA Tag Team Champs on the cover and inside. The Road Warriors are about to make their first trip to Japan and really become widespread. They were like the Beatles. The magazines were the only coverage that the Japanese people were able to see, unless they had some TV tapings of some sort. The tape trading was still a little bit early yet, but they were enormous, and it was thanks to the magazine coverage. This is one of their first. Actually, no, this is one of their first issues as being in the AWA. There is a bunch of magazines before this date of February 1985, but they're all from the when they were national tag team champions. So I didn't want to show any of those because I'm trying to keep this all AWA. This is they're talking about the Road Warriors that are coming to the territory and to compete in the tournament called Exciting Wars. Now, Exciting Wars was a huge tag team tournament that would last a month long, and the Road Warriors were going to compete, and the fans were absolutely going crazy when these guys touched down. The cameras were everywhere, following them everywhere. They were on every single magazine cover for the next 3 months, and the magazine came out every week. 2 publications, so that's between 8 and 10 magazines a month, just from the 2 publications, not counting the other publications. They were everywhere. This program is their very first appearance, very first event, and it was a tournament held for a month. It's hard to explain. The same program is used for the entire month. This could be extremely expensive, this program, and you have to watch because what you're paying for is inside the program, and it's the stamp here. Okay, the Road Warriors had, let me see if I can just show you here. This is stamped. This says the all the people and the dates. Okay, the Road Warriors. The main match was the Road Warriors taking on Tenryu and Giant Baba. That's the one you're paying for. So if you see this program and it cost you $200, yeah, that's pretty close to what you might pay for it stamped for Tenryu and Jumbo. If it's not stamped, you can probably get it for $30. If it's stamped with the Warriors in their other matches, then it should also be a little bit less, maybe $50, $60. If it's stamped in here, Tenryu and Jumbo versus the Warriors, you're paying a ton of money for it because that was the big match, and this is stamped by Tenryu and Jumbo. So they had 5 matches when they were there in Japan, and they only faced those guys once. They only competed in that month-long tournament, I think 5 times. They may have had either 5 or 6 matches. So it started in the 22nd of February, and then it ended at the end of that month of March. And they only had, like I said, just those couple 5 or 6 matches. So, but this is the one. If you're paying for this, make sure it's stamped. Make sure it's stamped, with Saruta and Tenryu as the match. If you're paying a lot, don't pay a lot if it isn't those guys. Okay, just a word of advice that I will try to give to you when you see this. It is a rough program to find, and it is expensive, but some people think they can pull the bullshit over people and try to sell them ones that aren't stamped, that aren't worth that. Okay, so if it's not stamped with the correct date, it's not worth it. This one here, I don't like to open that one either because I don't want to screw it up, but I wanted to show you inside what I mean by having it stamped and who the names were on the inside. Rick Martel would get his first AWA cover, Pro Wrestling Illustrated cover, and February of 1985, and it's a good looking shot of Martel with the belt. He wins the championship, and he's carrying the mail for the company now. And got this signed by Martel quite a few years back, and it's a great looking cover. I'm going to show some different issues from Japan with just the Road Warriors on the covers as they were AWA champs. There might be 10 or 12 of these different ones, but they're all during the AWA time period. This is Gong in February of 1985, just as they're there for the tournament. And here, Bruiser Brody and what do you call it? Killer Brooks were also in that tournament, and they went pretty far in that as well. Another shot. It almost looks exactly the same. It's just a little bit different. This is Gong, and this is Pro Wrestling Weekly. They're 2 different publications, and there's just a slight different pose. Even though they look exactly the same, they're just a little bit different. There's like those old cartoon things you used to kind of compare the picture and see the missing part. It's kind of the same thing. There's just a few subtle changes, but basically it's the same photo shoot. Another issue from Japan, another expensive one, all about the Road Warriors. This has their coverage when they were in Central Park and they were walking through the city, New York City streets on Times Square when it was freezing outside. They're wearing no shirts and they're kicking garbage cans and messing over people. It's pretty funny. February of 85, Martel on the bottom, and they're talking about him as being champ. La Lutte, which was the French-Canadian wrestling magazine from Canada, and they're mentioning about Martel's title win also. This is Star Wars 85. One of the first big events from the AWA, and they were merged with the NWA. And the first show that came to the Northeast and invading in the WWF's territory took place February 24th, 1985. Martel took on Jimmy Garvin. Flair took on Harley Race. Jerry Lawler and Baron took on the Road Warriors. Ivan and Nikita took on, I think it was Steve Kern or Stan Lane, one or the other, and Jimmy Valiant. And Bob Backlund, who's in the AWA now, took on Billy Robinson as a rematch in their 70s match. Pretty good card. Had quite a few people. It was 18,600 went to the show. That's a damn good show for a company that's never been here before and doing their first show. 18,600 is it's just too bad they couldn't continue those kind of houses in the Northeast. This was, pushed heavily during the Pro Wrestling USA TV show, and it really filled up the arena well for their first one, and they had about 4 others after that. This is Weekly Gong, again with the Warriors as AWA champs in March. Another Road Warrior cover. This has got the Exciting Wars tournament that I mentioned to you with the program. This was during the match with Jumbo and Tenru. If you look inside here, look at the size of the fans. I mean, this is the night. This was the big night. Like I said, the program for that night was enormous. The matches were enormous. It's also got Brody and Killer Brooks on the same card. It's got some good-looking photos of the Warriors in here. I'll just show you real quick. During the match, there he is slapping Tenru and slamming Jumbo, dropping him on the backbreaker there. Good-looking shots in these magazines, always were. And the match continues on with the Warriors. What happened was, let's see, Hawk pinned Jumbo first for the first fall. Jumbo pinned Hawk back for the second fall, and Jumbo was disqualified. Or actually, was it Jumbo disqualified? One of them got disqualified. It was a draw, basically. That's Brody on the other picture. Here they are with the tag team belts. Good looking photos, man. They like I said, they certainly did not skimp out. And here's some shots of them coming out of the airport, off the plane, and here they are tearing up photos of Jumbo and Tenru, and pictures of them as champs. And see if there's any more here. Continuing on, you get a ton. There's like 30 pages in here covering their first landing off the plane, and the match covered there. I'll just pull it there, but great magazine. If you see this one, I don't think it's that expensive. It should be under $50. And you're a Road Warrior fan, you got to have it because it was their first Japan tour, and it just it's just rare stuff like that you just don't see everywhere, especially that program that I had there. Like I said, they had 5 matches, and they were back in the States again for their first tour. They would go back again later on in the year, and they would end up getting the international tag team championship belts too. Pro Wrestling Report. This is the second issue that I have from Vern, and it's got the Warriors on the cover with the older style belts there. Rick Martel defending the title, taking on Harley Race in one of his title defenses. And good looking cover here of the Wrestler March 85. Another March 85, Bob Backlund in Pro Wrestling USA, taking on Ron Bass. Backlund taking on Rick Martel. Defending the title is Martel for Backlund, and Martel would say Backlund was his toughest opponent to date, without a doubt the toughest wrestler he had ever faced. Road Warriors winning the AWA Wrestling Tag Team of the Year in the year-end awards. Pro Wrestling USA had their second event in the Meadowlands again, and this was April. I think it was, is it April? Let me see. Yeah, April 19th, 1985. And it's got Slaughter and Kamala. I believe it was the Road Warriors versus Larry Hennig and Jerry Lawler, if I'm not mistaken. The Tonga Kid was on the card. King Tonga, Larry Zbyszko took on Backlund. And the Freebirds made their appearance on this one also. Another rare show, but I don't think they struggled. I think they struggled to get like 6,000 fans. It was like night and day from the other event that they had, the first one. Nowhere near the amount of people at the second, which is kind of discouraging. I mean, less than half it's almost like a quarter. It's pretty bad numbers there. Wrestling News issue, April 85, is mentioning the AWA champion Martel, and as a write-up about Martel in this issue. Also, Wrestling All-Stars got all three champions on the cover, Hogan, Flair, and Martel in the middle of Wrestling All-Stars. Another good magazine with the Road Warriors, and this comes with a huge fold-out poster of the Warriors. Actually, two posters. One's a 16, 23 by 20 or 22 by 20, and then there's a trifold inside that's attached. Real cool magazine. So if you pay a lot for that one, make sure both posters are in it. Invitation to the Ring, another Gong issue of the Warriors with the AWA belts on the bottom. Here is so just some photos from the 4 matches or 5 matches that they had during the tournament. Backlund now, the People's Champion, is in Pro Wrestling USA. Also, the Warriors taking on Lawler from the Pro Wrestling USA card that was in February of '85. Another coverage from the Pro Wrestling USA event, which was Star Wars, May of '85. It's got Martel and Garvin from that match. Fantastic, fabulous ones, and the rock and roll on the cover. But here you're getting your first pull-out poster of the Road Warriors in PWI, so I thought it was worth showing that just to see your first pin-up in this issue of May. Warriors back on another cover from Japan and Gong. Another cover again. They always put out great covers with the champions. Full coverage of the Pro Wrestling USA's Star Wars card on this issue, June '85 of Sports Review. Also, ringside covering the match with Garvin and Martel. Main Event Wrestling's also covering a June '85's issue. Hulk and Animal with the split face. They continue to dominate the year. And when they go to the NWA, forget it. There must have been 4 million covers with these guys, man. It's just ridiculous. And I have them all, too. June of '85, LOD again. Wrestling News cover with the old belts. This is my signed copy that I got from Animal. This is a monster of a magazine. It's a magazine newspaper, and it's just crazy. Good looking shot of the tag team champs standing in the alleyway before, or the entranceway before coming to the ring. Really loved that shot as well. Martel taking on one of the Freebirds. I was at this match. I'm not sure if that's the actual match, but I was at their match for that title defense when they went at it in New Jersey. Star Wars '85, once again covered on Wrestling Scene, covering the Flair and the Race match for the NWA title. Backlund here taking on Rick Martel again in another issue covered by the Wrestler. Martel taking on Kendo Nagasaki, who was in the AWA, and you also get your first pin-up of Martel as champ in this main event issue. Pretty good looking shot of Martel and a great looking shot of the belt in July '85 main event. August 16th, 1985 would be the next Pro Wrestling USA show, the next Star Wars event in North Jersey, and attendance a little bit up from the last one. 7,000 people came to this one, nowhere near the 18,600 the first one grabbed. And I'm trying to think of what the main event was on this one. The 16th. As Slaughter takes on Flair. That's why I couldn't remember it. And it's right in front of my face. A lot of times the pictures don't go with the cover, so that's why I had to think for a second. But yeah, Slaughter and Flair. Zbyszko took on Martel, and the Road Warriors took on the Freebirds on this one. Again, like I said, it's a little bit better than the last one, but still way down in an arena that holds 20,000 people. Sarge back on the cover, and he becomes the America's champion in the AWA, another title that was just kind of made up when Sarge got there to give him a belt. didn't want to give him the world title. He was red hot in the WWF after taking on the Iron Sheik. He could have capitalized on a lot of his heat and just kind of kept him cool there and really didn't do a whole lot with him. Eventually, he'd go back to the WWF. He'd beat Hogan as a heel and become the champion again and be red hot again. It's just amazing what McMahon was doing with a lot of Vern's talent at first. Here is some coverage of the North Jersey show with Kamala and Sarge, August of 1985. Sarge and Martel on the cover, August 85 All-Stars. And here's the coverage for Flair and Sarge, June 85 Inside Wrestling. Also the Road Warriors on the front cover. Ringside Wrestling also has the match, Sarge and Flair. Wrestling News covering Sarge once again. Getting a lot of popularity in the magazines again. And just kind of was lukewarm at best, I guess. Road Warriors would have endless feuds with the Russians. Here's another one, Bloodbath in Baltimore. Once again, getting ready for the Great American Bash. They're trying to make some appearances now in the NWA. Not very often would you see somebody else's champion going over and defending the title in another territory. If the Road Warriors did it, they were red hot. People used them, and Vern farmed them out. And was only gaining their popularity in the NWA, and they were soon to be bound for the NWA anyway. October 1985, Animal back on the cover of the Japanese issues. All-Star Wrestling October 85 with the Warriors again. Freebirds get the cover talking about the war with the Road Warriors. Wrestling World Special October 85, taking on the Russians. This is Boris Zukov. Road Warriors on another Japanese issue once again in November of 85. Freebird War continuing with the Warriors, November 85. All three world champions on the cover of the Champions photo album, Martel, Flair, and Hogan. Good looking photo album inside. Again, giant photos of all your favorites in full color. World Super Title match, Flair, NWA, AWA, Martel taking on each other in Japan. Big news in Japan. Not much talked about in America. Hardly any magazine really picked up on it. And title versus title. Pretty wild match. And bloody match. And here's Flair again on another issue of Gong. The other one was Pro Wrestling Weekly. And better looking shot here. A little bit smaller, a little more easier to display. Here's the actual match on the cover of Gong. NWA versus AWA, title versus title. Flair getting thrown by Martel. And Pro Wrestling Weekly also covering it in November's issue. Wrestling World got Bockwinkel and Jim Brunzell on the cover of December 85. Night of the Champions 2, December 29th. Big night, no one's seen it coming. There is a new heavyweight champion of the world. Stan Hansen defeats Rick Martel. Wow. Dusty Rhodes took on Ric Flair the same night. Road Warriors took on Nikita and Ivan. Or was it Ivan and Crusher, I think. Slaughter took on, who was it, Zukov and the other Russian, Markov maybe? I remember the name, the Knyets-Borba match. We couldn't stop laughing at that name. What ridiculous. I just never forgot the name. And the Barbarian takes on Carlos Colon for the WWC title, who they had a feud back in Puerto Rico prior to these coming up north for the Barbarian. I don't remember I think there was between 10 or 12,000 fans on this one, so it was a much better card. No one expected Stan the Lariat Hansen to become the new champion, and he defeated Martel out of nowhere. Another crazy champion pick. It's just absolutely wild, and I never would have thought that. No one would have thought that. Here's a good-looking shot of the Road Warriors in this wrestling main event. This is your first pull-out poster of them as AWA Tag Champions. Real good-looking shot of both guys. Can't fit the whole thing in. Just got to stretch it out a little bit. On the cover of February 1986 main event. Wrestling Battlestar 86. another big card, and this one not really doing too well either. I think they had maybe another 6,000 seat show again. Don't really remember every. I have them written on here, but I don't remember what the card was on this one. Sorry, guys. I don't think it was much to talk about. February 24th, 1986, Battlestar 86. Sorry, I don't have it here, the match list. PWI, another year-end awards, and it's another one with the Road Warriors as the tag team of the year, of course. Who else was going to beat them out? Magazine coverage of Martel losing the title to Stan Hansen, and to the Shock, and calling him a quitter because Martel gave up the match. That match was on YouTube. He had him in a submission, and he did tap out, which was another crazy ending. This was I won this for free when I bought the Powertown Wrestling figure of Lou Thesz and Bruiser Brody, and they picked your name out of a hat, so to speak, and I won this autographed photo of Stan Hansen. Pretty cool. I never would have bought it, but I'll certainly take it for free and display it happily. Good looking shot of Stan with the title. Always like Stan, nothing wrong with Stan at all. Just I didn't think it was the right choice to go up against Flair and Hogan as the competitors as a world champ. Rage in the Cage. Okay, this would be the last event, and this one had about 4,500 people. Dead show, and it would be the last one that Vern would run in the Northeast with the NWA as partners. The Road Warriors in a cage versus the Russians, Dusty and Arn Anderson for the TV title, and also in a cage. It was Tully Blanchard versus Ronnie Garvin for the national title. Bockwinkel and Zbyszko battle for the Americas title, and Hansen took on Van Vader. I'm just trying to think of his name when he was here. Leon White. Before he was Van Vader, he was Leon White, and what a future those two would end up having in Japan, a future match anyway in Japan, and one of them losing their eyeball. Check that match out if you had never seen it. Vader versus Stan Hansen in New Japan. Pretty wild. Road Warriors, May of 86 on the cover. Once again, they dominated every cover. Sergeant Slaughter for the AWA takes on July 86 issue of Inside Wrestling. First look at all three world champions. Stan Hansen now his first cover as world champion. WWF program, it's the lineup that's intriguing. Hulk Hogan digs up the Crusher from the AWA and brings him on as his tag team partner to take on Stud and Bundy at the Mecca Arena in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, October 23rd, 1986. And that's just another one of maybe Vince's slaps in the faces for taking one of the top talents from the AWA, never wrestled in the WWF before, was the Crusher, and here he is teaming up with Hulk Hogan. Wow. This was one of my programs that I had gotten from the TV taping at AWA Pro Wrestling USA in New Jersey. Double Action Wrestling magazine, Nick Bockwinkel autographed on the cover with the world title. One of your last looks at Bockwinkel. He's about to lose the title to Kurt Hennig on here Wrestling Fury. Here's their match. This is not the match he won the belt with. He would have it several months down the line, but it would go to Kurt. Kurt's first full cover as AWA World Champion here, April 1988. And not so much for the magazine cover. They didn't put it on the cover, but they got a great shot of Kurt with a pull-out poster as the world champion. Great looking shot of Kurt here as the AWA heavyweight champion of the world on this issue, July 88, if you're looking for it. I proudly own nothing with that douche Shawn Michaels on the cover, and I'm so glad that I don't have him on this one. It's Marty Jannetty, the Rockers, taking on Doug Summers and Buddy Rose, going for the tag team championship titles. Kurt Hennig again, Wrestling USA with the World Championship belt. Oh, I lied. I have something with Michaels. I was only joking, by the way. October 1988, the Midnight Rockers on their way to the WWF, and Shawn Michaels about to become an icon. Jerry Lawler would take the AWA World title from Kurt Hennig. Long overdue world champion Jerry Lawler. Always a fan of Jerry Lawler. Always liked his matches. Big fan of Memphis wrestling. Always loved Memphis TV. I have had barrels and barrelfuls of DVDs from Memphis TV. I watch it all the time. I watch that more than anything else, pretty much. Always loved CWA and everything else it became, USWA and everything else beyond, up to 2002, I believe. It was like the longest running territory in history. McMahon couldn't beat them, so he decides to join them. For those who know what I mean, you know what I mean. February 1989, and it's got Lawler on the bottom here, but all three world champions: Savage WWF, Flair with the NWA, and Jerry the King on the bottom with the belt. I can't say gold because it's not gold. One of my favorite autograph photos, Jerry the King. Awesome penmanship. He really does, man. He knocks it out with this. He always had great handwriting. He looks great with the title. It's well deserving, and I'm really happy for Jerry to have gotten the title. I know his health is not the greatest, and I'm wishing him well, even though it's inevitable. I hope, I wish him the best. He's in my thoughts and prayers for sure. Wrestling Eye issue of March of '89 has got Jerry the King on the back as the champion for a back pinup, and so I thought I'd show that for any fans who are looking for pinups like I did with all the others. He's on no centerfold, sadly, but just the pullouts are fine. It's better than nothing. Superstars of Super Summer Wrestling, and all three companies with three big events. Lawler will be taking on Kerry Von Erich for the IWCCW World Championship to merge the titles, and Lawler will come out the champion and hold all three titles: AWA, WCCW, and the CWA. World champion, May of '89, Sports Review. And here is the one world title of the Unification Champion, Jerry Lawler, one belt representing three, so to speak. And he was stripped of the title, and some political things happened, and blah, blah. A real rare issue here, Wrestling Arena magazine. It wasn't printed in the States, but I have it for the simple reason that Lawler is on the back with all three titles. So pretty hard shot to come up with. I remember the TV taping when he walked out with this on Memphis TV, and luckily someone snagged a picture of it, and it became a back cover of a magazine of Arena. I don't know if this is expensive, if it's rare. I know nothing about the Arena. I only have a couple of them, and this one was because of the pinup. Is the only reason I have it. Good looking shot of Jerry there in the back. Jerry would be stripped of the title, and Larry Zbyszko would finally get the World Heavyweight Championship title around his waist. Here he is with all three world champions on October '89 of Gold Power Championship Wrestling issue. And this would be the only cover he would be on, sadly. I do have an 8x10 signed of him. I have a couple other 8x10s too, of like Bockwinkel and Martel. I just figured there's no reason to show them. They see enough magazines of those in there. But this is a cool shot of Larry with the belt. He is on nothing, but he's inside several Japanese issues, especially when he would lose a title to Saito. And here he is here. There's a full story. They're calling their three world champions. This is Vader as the IWGP world champion, Flair NWA champ, and Larry AWA champ. I have a magazine. This is in this issue, by the way, 1990 February's issue of Gong. I do have an issue with Mr. Saito winning the title, and I can't find it. It was driving me crazy. I looked all over the place, and I just cannot find it for the life of me. I'm probably going to turn around after this video and find it sitting behind me somewhere. It's been a month since the last video, and I didn't want to wait any longer. I was in the mood to get this done because I knew it was going to be long. 2 hours and 5 minutes, probably 10 after I shut up. But wow, this is definitely our longest video, and you're probably wondering who this guy is and why is he holding the AWA Heavyweight Championship belt. This is Masato Tanaka. Sorry about the glare. And the AWA continued and still continues on in lineage and belt in a company called 01, and it's in Japan. And their title, belt, and history and lineage is being defended as 01's world title. Masato had just lost the title maybe 8 or 9 months, maybe a year ago. And the new champion is, I forget his name. I think his last name is Weiss, Chris Weiss, something like that. He's the champion now. And I'm sure Masato is going to be back and take it one more time. He's a multiple-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion, and there's a great rare shot of him, and this is autographed with him winning the trophy and the title belt. Like I said, Mr. Saito defeated Larry Zbyszko for the title. The company of the AWA shortly folded after Saito was awarded the World Championship, and the AWA was swallowed up by the World Wrestling Entertainment. So therefore, for these guys in 01, they tried fighting it in court. They couldn't use the name AWA, but they are using it on the belt. It's written AWA World Heavyweight Champion, and they are using the lineage in Japan. So it's good to know that McMahon couldn't get his hands on everything. They tried putting a stop to this, and they couldn't. And good for them. More power to them. And I hope they continue on and keep their history alive in the AWA. Let it live on in Japan, much like they did with Mildred Burke's WWA Ladies World Heavyweight Championship belt. That's alive and well from the 1910 to today in 2024 in Japan. All right, guys, thanks. If you're still with me, God bless you. I need a new back and new legs and everything else. I'm dying here. 2 hours and 6 minutes. Thanks for sticking with me on this crazy-ass long video of the AWA. See yous on the next.